here with senior video producer at Boston University, Bill Politis. Bill produced a video about that I've shared in this newsletter before about Custodian. The title of the video is Custodian's kept BU clean for 27 years. And it's just a really heartwarming film. And I wanted to get Bill on to interview him and take us behind the scenes. So welcome. Thanks for being here, Bill.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Yeah. So tell me, how did this video come about?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a full-time video producer over at BU, and I've been there it'll be 10 years in August. And over those 10 years, I have, we've developed a lot of personal contacts throughout the university. And I have another colleague who's also a senior video producer who's been there a little bit longer than I have. And someone actually who lives in the dorms, he's a faculty member who lives in the dorms, reached out to my colleague Devin and said, hey, there's this custodian, Victor, who is like the wisest man I've ever met in my entire life. You guys should profile him. And so that request came in, and then Devin was a little busy with other projects and he sent it over to me. And so I reached out to the person who had recommended Victor. And then it was, a couple of weeks of back and forth trying to schedule a meeting with Victor. And then finally I got to meet him in person with no camera or anything like that and kind of explained what we do. And he was kind of like, whatever, sure. And I ended up learning that he was in a rock band when he was much younger. So I think he had dreams of being on TV and being in a famous rock band. So I think he saw the opportunity to get himself out there a little bit because he was totally game. And sometimes you do these things and people are like, oh no, I don't want to be on camera at all. But he was into it. Victor was like, let's go.
That's really cool. I love that. I love, I just think, I talked to a lot of in-house videographers, and I know that the general culture of an in-house team is that you're just doing order taking work, a lot of short order cook, just stuff that, and this is not always the case, but in some cases, the video producers not doing stuff that's really, feel inspired by. It's usually just kind of wherever the president's speaking that day or,
Sure.
or whatever. So I just I noticed this. I'm like, that's cool that BU is actually would spend the time on that.
Yeah, we've actually I love my job there because that's kind of been our mandate from this beginning when I started working there. Our VP of external communications, he's always been just focused on storytelling, and it's less rah rah go BU. It's more let's highlight really interesting things or really interesting people happening at BU, and by that great storytelling, we'll be doing that rah rah BU kind of thing. So
Yeah.
We're very, very lucky that we have that mandate from on high. It's really that's basically all we try to do is tell human stories there. And I know that is not the most common thing in higher education university videographers world. So it's really great. I think that's what's kept me there so long, honestly.
That's awesome. Yeah, good for you, man. It's good to be part of an in-house team that's doing what you want to be doing long term.
Totally.
So take us behind the scenes a little bit. So one of the things that I notice from a production standpoint about this is that we don't ever see Victor talking. And I just find it funny. I've tried to do that with clients in the past, non-higher ed clients. And it's they don't get it. They're like, we can't see him talking. I'm like, well, the B-roll, it's obvious who's talking. It's just a little more artsy that way. Sometimes you can't get that past a more traditional client, but I was like, oh, okay, I feel like it really adds to the personality of it to not see a sit down interview with him. But just tell me about that. What was that?
Yeah. No, I think that's cool that you brought that up because I think that's a technique that we've been able to do that at BU for a good 7 or 8 years now. When I think when you do the off-camera interview, the personality is so much better because they're not worried about how they look or how they're presenting to the camera. So when I did that interview with Victor, the whole project was, I actually only filmed with him one day, and then I did the interview on a second day. But I would see him around campus between those two meetings, and so we would catch up and just shoot the shit. And we became kind of friendly. And when you spend a whole day with someone going through their daily life, you develop a little bit of a friendship. So I intentionally wait until I've gotten to know someone a little bit before I try to do an interview. In the off-camera interview, especially, there's just so much more personality. It's just me and Victor in a room. The camera's pointed the other way. I have the microphone on him or close to him. And, we're just talking. And the Victor interview, the raw file is probably 2.5 hours long. It's so long.
Yeah.
because I let him kind of go and talk about whatever he wanted to talk about, you know. And then I've been doing it long enough that I can, you know, in my head, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thread to follow. That's an interesting thread to follow. So I'll kind of go back to things that he may have said earlier, but I let him go on a little bit of a tangent, just because I don't want to be like, hey, can you say it like this? Like, can you do this for me? Can you say this? I kind of just want to have it be like a conversation. And there's definitely a time and place where you have to say, hey, do you mind repeating this phrase, but repeating it like this? And, you know, I'm going to use it in the beginning of the video to establish something, and you have to explain it to them. But I try to, on the first go, just let them talk and let them be themselves. And I think the Victor video is a great example of why that works, because, you know, you can hear him laughing. He makes little jokes, you know, like, and you just feel the comfortable. He's so comfortable behind the camera, and I think that really shines, and that, like, the viewer trusts the video making process more. You know, you're like, oh, okay, this person obviously feels comfortable with this filmmaker, so I'm going to feel comfortable with this filmmaker and the story that they're telling.
That's cool. You definitely get like that comes across in the personality of the piece that he was just comfortable, proud of his work, like happy to be there. I think that's cool that you filmed the interview after, and that's normally like, I mean, when for people like me that are doing client work, that's like, you know, kind of on the clock, you know, you don't really have access to the person like that,
Right.
you know, in
Right.
a way to like, hey, let's just spend the day together and film some stuff, and then we'll kind of massage the you know, we'll do the interview, and it'll be
Absolutely.
more natural. I mean, I got to do one thing like that. We did a documentary on at my previous job, directed a documentary on the sport of equestrian show jumping,
Oh, nice. Yeah.
and we started out just like spending a week in California getting to know the sport, and
Yeah.
like we did some interviews and stuff like that, but just to be immersed in there in that, and just see how the competitions go and see how the horses move and all this stuff. That was super helpful, but normally you don't get that opportunity. It's just like, all right, go shoot the interview, you know,
Right.
get some B-roll, get out of
Right.
there.
And like, and I feel for people who are in front of the camera on projects like that too, because it's like, all right, I've just shown you all the things that I do. I still feel strange about being on camera. Now I have to spit up all this stuff about me. You know, it's a lot in one day. So it's a tough assignment.
Yeah. So that was just you filming that?
Yeah, so all of the stuff we do at BU usually is just one person filming, and they are the writer, director, cinematographer, editor, producer. They do everything. It's a one-man band shop, and you know, occasionally we have larger shoots where someone helps out on, or if you have a scene that you need to capture that you can't get with only one camera, we'll bring them in. But we've had like a real serious focus on like cinema verite from the beginning there, which has been what I loved studying in school, because I actually went to BU before I worked there,
Oh,
and
cool.
that was like my real passion. So. All like the Maisels brothers, and then like Streetwise, which is an amazing cinema verite movie. There are these movies that use all the techniques in fiction filmmaking in documentary filmmaking, and it's mind blowing how they cut around a scene to make it feel seamless and continuous. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so that's kind of like what I really love about the documentary stuff. It's that magic, being able to take something real and, you know, make it feel kind of like a movie in a lot of ways. And so yeah, it's usually just me filming, and like there's a lot of techniques that like are very popular in cinema verite that I'm sure all you know about. Like, you know, you let the people enter the frame, you let them leave the frame.
Mm-hmm.
You always try to get like the right coverage, so you have a wide shot, you have a medium shot to cut to, you have a close-up shot. Maybe if they're working with their hands, you know, you go from their hands to their face. So you develop all these like tools in your toolkit, and you're like, when I'm approaching a scene, I'm kind of like, all right, I feel like this is what the scene is all about. You know, like this is what's happening right in front of me, and I feel like it looks best from this angle, but I need to get a beginning and an end to the scene so that it cuts with the rest of the stuff I'm working around. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And it reminds me, there's a piece I saw several years ago, and it was an agency that did this with the whole crew, probably like a 10-person crew, you know, whole like agency style. And it was like
Yeah.
the bellhop at a Hilton hotel or something like
Yeah.
that. And I'm like, it's like very similar, like similar in length and stuff like that. But like, honestly, I'm watching this, I'm like, I bet they didn't have, I bet it was like one or two people doing this, but the quality is like as good, if not better than this 10-person agency crew, you know,
Oh, thanks.
which is out, which I'm always kind of like, there's kind of two schools of thought. It's like, there's people that kind of like were cut their teeth in this sort of scrappy sort of documentary world. And then there's people that kind of maybe came out of film school that are more used to like having 10 people on set to do individual roles,
Right.
and I noticed like sometimes those people can't function in the opposite world. you know
Yeah. You know,
um
It's interesting you said that because, like, I think why I gravitated to Verite right after school is because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to afford to move to LA or New York and work as a production assistant and pay rent. So like I lived with my parents when I got out of school, and all I did was shoot Verite because you only need yourself and a camera and a microphone, and it's
Hmm.
all I did. And it was awesome, and it ended up getting me my job at BU, which has been great. But I think that's like the most punk rock form of filmmaking, if you ask me, like the cinema verite thing, because
Yeah.
it's the lowest budget, and it just like you can do whatever you want. There's total creative freedom in it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And then when you get the whole crew there, it's like too many cooks in the kitchen on a lot of times. Um, and then it's whose vision are you trusting? Who's the real author of like the visual like treatment of this subject? If you have four cameramen, and like a sound guy and a director and a producer, it becomes kind of muddled. And I think a lot, if you can do it, I think doing the one person or maybe just two people shoot is really a slick way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. What was there any times when you directed his actions at all, or was it just
Yeah.
I'm going to follow you around?
Yeah, so there's definitely times like when I think one of the first shots he comes into the frame and like signs in, and so I watched him do that, and I said like I watched him before he signed. He had like his pen on the paper. I said, whoa, 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 wait, and I like I go over and I frame my shot, and then I'm like, okay, go ahead and do it. And
Yeah.
I'll do that all the time with stuff, but usually the way it works is that I'll observe them doing something naturally, and then I'll ask them to repeat it. Kind of what I was saying earlier about like I know I need a wide shot or a close up of this detail. It's like I already have like one shot of them doing this thing. I just need them to get it at a different angle. So I'll ask them to repeat it. I'll never ask people to like repeat words that they say because I find that if you ask them to do that, they become completely unnatural and just terrible acting.
Oh yeah.
But actions, a lot of times, I will have them repeat things for sure.
Yeah, that's kind of my style too. I like to think of myself as a video producer as like more I'm not very generative, I'm more like iterative. So like
Yeah,
I have a hard time like thinking of what to tell this person to do from scratch.
right.
But if I can just
Oh
get
yeah,
them to do something, and then I'm like, oh, you know what, if you just tweaked it like this, or if we had a camera here, then yeah, like that's totally my style too, is like get them to do something and then have them do it again in a special way, but like then the
yeah.
movements act natural.
I think that's the most natural way to do it, because you're responding, and that's like kind of the cool thing about being a documentary cameraman. You're responding to what you think is beautiful in the real world or looks cool. I find it difficult myself to be like a generative like filmmaker because I shoot a lot of just purely as a cinematographer, a lot of ads and commercials and stuff like that. And they'll ask me for ideas and stuff like that, and it's a skill that I've had to like build over the past 5 years because I'm naturally one who just wants to go out in the world, see something, and then report back on it,
Right.
respond to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Same. Um, so for the sort of people, the more gear minded people
Yeah,
watching this video, what tell us about the gear you used? Any special like lighting setup or audio setup or anything like that?
absolutely. Yeah. So we use Canon C300s at BU, and we've used the Mark One. We used them up until I think 2020, and then we upgraded to the Mark Three. So we have like very much it's just the Canon C300 Mark III. We use Sennheiser 416 shotgun mics in the little shotgun holder. And then we use the main lenses we use are Canon EFS, the 17 to 55 2.8, and then the Canon 70 to 200 L lens. And those two in particular because they have image stabilization. And, it's that has been my like documentary workhorse since like 2011, that like little setup. I haven't changed anything really. The only thing that I've started to change a little bit more is, grading. Like once I started shooting commercials and stuff, I had to figure out like, all right, you need to like know how to grade and you need to know how to light. So I've been shooting a little bit. I've been using like Resolve now.
Yeah.
Like instead of just grading in Avid, with their like very, very rudimentary tools in Avid, I'll bring it into Resolve and I'll do a little like sometimes I'll do like a film emulation or I'll just like, you know, put a little film grain on it to make it look a little cooler.
Yeah.
Just to give like a little softness. But yeah, that's kind of, we have like a pretty simple setup there. We don't normally use like gimbals or anything like that. It's kind of all handheld. I have like the camera here next to me, but I have like this like this posture that I have with it. I hold it in with one hand and then I have the lens here, and then I always have it like pressed up against my chest or like my belly. And it's kind of like the 3 point of contact, and that's how I just shoot everything. I'm sure I look insane because I'm always like hunched over the thing, but
Oh yeah.
that's kind of how I shoot, you know. And I think the reason I shoot like I learned how to shoot like that in school from the professor that she was a documentary filmmaker that I learned a lot from, and she taught me to shoot like that. But I always felt like shooting on the shoulder rig is very difficult because I'm always like looking down at someone, and if I don't want to like look down, I have to like get on my knee and like, you know. So I like the like not a lot of gear, pretty simple setup, just slam it into my chest and like stabilize it as best I can and go from there.
That's awesome. And then the last thing I wanted to ask you is, I noticed you had a custom soundtrack made.
Yeah. Well, you mean like audio, like the song?
Yeah, if I'm remembering correctly, in the credits it had like let me see,
Oh yeah, Five Alarm Music. That's
Five
just a
Alarm Music.
yeah, that's just a music library that we subscribe to.
Oh,
Like, you know, like it's like Premium Beat or you know, Music Bed or something like that. It's just the particular library that BU subscribes to.
okay. I was wondering about that because I was like, oh, did he like custom compose this thing? And
No, I wish. So yeah, and it's the same. Like I love Five Alarm just as much as I love any of the other subscriptions. You have to search for like 6 hours to find like a song that doesn't sound completely ridiculous.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, the music is very, very difficult. That is probably one of the hardest parts of a project because not only are you setting the tone and it's got to feel right, it's also gonna not gonna. It's always like there's 45 seconds of like the song's amazing, and then there's one strange instrument that comes in that
right,
like ruins the whole thing, you know.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it's kind of like I probably went through 6 different songs with Victor stuff before I figured that one out.
yeah. I like so I use Soundstripe, and
Okay. Yep.
I've had a lot of luck with their AI like beta feature.
Oh, cool.
And so you can put in like making this type of video and I want something upbeat or whatever, and it
Sure.
usually like pulls like some pretty close samples. I used it this morning for like a little drone highlight reel for a corporate client, but
I'll have to check that out. I haven't delved into the AI music stuff yet, but that sounds amazing.
yeah. And then Soundstripe too, you can get the stems,
Yes. Yep.
which is super helpful. Yeah, when you get that instrumentation, that's just like,
Yeah.
let's remove these like oohs and ahs in the background, or
Right. Right. It's the best. Yeah.
whistling. If there's whistling in it, I
Oh,
will
I
not
know.
use it.
I know. I feel like you could do that like 10 years ago, and now it's like
Yeah,
completely unacceptable.
yeah, and yeah. The sort of childlike acoustic guitar rhythm with whistling was like,
Yeah.
and stomping and clapping, all of that together is like very 2010 to me.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Well, cool, man. This is great. Thanks for sharing your wisdom with
Of
us.
course.
We'll get you included in the group. But where can people connect with you at if they wanted to ask you a question or just say
Yeah,
hi?
I would say like I'm terrible at LinkedIn, as I was just telling you about, but I have my personal email on my website, so it's just my name, billpolitis.com, and my name, my email is just williampolitis@gmail. So I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff with anybody who's like, you know, maybe starting a program at their school, or they're there and they're kind of doing photo and video, but they want a little more help with the video stuff. Happy to talk to people, so feel free to reach out.
Awesome. All right. Thanks.